everyone, and welcome to A View from the Top. Today we have the pleasure of having with us Matteo Gatta, the CEO of BICS, the recent, I should say, CEO of BICS from January, so it's 9 months. But Matteo is somebody that has worked within BICS, Proximus Group, I would say the telecom industry for over 20 years, so it will be very familiar to all of you. Hi, Matteo. Thanks for joining us.
Dario. Hello to the audience. First of all, thanks a lot for having me in this conversation. I'm indeed no stranger to the industry, but we can see that in the follow-on of the interview.
Well, great. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure because I also can prove our theory right again. So for the last interview, this is probably our 10th interview with CEOs from a different part of the mobile ecosystem. But there is one thing that makes all of them common. We're all engineers. Now, Matteo, University of Pavia, you are an engineer, you are a telecom engineer, nonetheless. How did you end up there? How important it is to be an engineer to become a CEO of a large telecom group now?
Oh, that's a very good one. So yes, indeed, I'm a guilty party. I'm an engineer as well. And even in my military service, after engineering degree at university, my alma mater is Pavia, University of Pavia. I also did telecommunication in the army for at the time the service was compulsory. So I've always been doing telecom. Whether you need to be an engineer to be a successful telecom leader, that is not a given. I mean, I know a lot of people that are excellent leaders without an engineering background, but I would say a background always helps, but you need to cultivate additional interest during your career, because you need to complete the leadership profile. You need to acquire new tools and new competences as well to be able to lead a company in transformation through the various challenges and try to anticipate on market development.
That's true. I mean, and it's true in your career as well. You went to the Politecnico Milano, well, I think looking at IT, but more recently, you also looked at corporate finance. You went to the Solvay Business School. And so the question is natural now. What is more important today in the board of BICS? Would you be spending more time looking at the corporate finance, or are you spending more time looking at the technology part? What's the most pressing of the two?
I think it's very hard to say what is most pressing. I believe that all aspects are important, and that really makes the difference. So I think technology gives you the opportunity to capture the foresight. So you try to understand where the market is going, but then how you create value, you need to fall back into important elements and important considerations which go around value creation, where finance gives you the tool to do so. But I think what really matters is, and the reasons why I actually went to spend some time to the University of Solvay is that I always wanted to do business economics, and it is my passion as well, But at the time when I chose to become an engineer, I did the simple maths. I said at the time, the highest demand for jobs was in the technology, and so I said, well, I'll go this way. I'll find a job, and then we'll see. So, but that was the consideration at the beginning. But I think the experience in Solvay was great, and it helped me to structure some knowledge I already had, but also to gather a very different way of looking at decision making, which is critical. Yeah.
Well, fantastic, and we've seen how things have changed. But I should say at this point, Matteo, me and you are both Italian. Hey, ciao.
Ciao.
In case it wasn't obvious, and you started in Telecom Italia, the Telecom Italia Mobile, the fantastic years of Telecom Italia Mobile, I should say, of the late 90s, when the entire world was looking at Telecom Italia Mobile and TIM, and what we were doing and launching prepaid, etc. Now, most people stayed in Telecom Italia, and somebody like you, we would expect it to be working in TIM today. But you decided to go somewhere else, to leave. How did that came about? How did you leave Italy?
Well, before I get into that, and I will tell you, it's a simple answer. So on your question, I'm going to tell you that one of my biggest projects when I was in Telecom Italia was about SMS. And it
Oh,
was
well.
not SMS, non-person to person, but was application to a fleet of couriers, carriers basically. So we had to build what was one of the very first application of messaging to steer a fleet of cars throughout the Italian territory. It was an excellent way to see how you can leverage telecom and messaging also for industrialization of processes. And we are talking about that every day today. So it's a very interesting way. But to answer your question, I have to say that it was a family, well, it was my wife that was actually decided to move to US at the time, to UK. And basically I restarted my career and I left Telecom Italia. I left also because I had already left Telecom Italia, by the way, to work for Infostrada at the time. But then I left Italy to go to actually come to London, where I enjoyed very well. I mean, the different dynamics, and I learned. I had to start from scratch, of course, because of the language barrier. But I think it was an excellent opportunities. Telecom Italia is a great company, and it was at the time very much at the forefront of the technology. And but I wanted to go for an international opportunities, and that was the decision at the time.
It doesn't get much more international than BICS, I would say, in terms of companies, how it came about, and etc. You joined what was then Belgacom, one, the original part of BICS. And that was 17 years ago, almost 20 years ago, I would say. You have done your career within Belgacom, and in between other things as well. The first question is, as a reflection, in 17 years, how did the Belgacom Proximus BICS structure change? Many things, a bit of a reflection, what do you think of those 17 years now?
Interesting question. I think I may answer a little bit, because when you look at telecom is an industry in constant transformation, and there's substantial innovation that also leads to a dramatic change into the value drivers of if you look at the revenue mix, how the revenue mix has evolved in the industry. I'm not talking specific wholesale, I'm talking specific overall telecom. So the organization, the structure of Proximus has followed that. BICS at the time was a well-hidden jewel inside the portfolio of Proximus, and then through a couple of interesting mergers became what is today. So that started the journey in 2005 and reached another big milestone in 2010-11. So the first one with Swisscom, second one with MTN. It created a world leader. Proximus is now today our 100% shareholder, so we feel very, very comfortable with that, meaning that it's very challenging shareholder, but at the same time extremely supportive, and they consider BICS as a vehicle to grow going forward at a global scale, because that is definitely what makes the BICS different from Proximus, is that we act globally, and that brings to Proximus opportunities which are from capturing market advances and market progress in technology, but also progress in services across the world, but also to look at a great opportunity to diversify the portfolio.
Yeah, and let me ask you also, because Belgacom BICS comes from a well-established telecom carrier, but in your career you also have worked. You mentioned Infostrada. Maybe I should say you were also the CEO of Scarlet and of Altnet. How much of the alternative telecom approach is there in BICS in you today?
There is plenty. There is plenty of that, but in a way that the difference between a traditional Altnet in a domestic market and BICS is that an Altnet has to find opportunity always in a single market. BICS often collaborate with incumbents with very clever initiatives to enable them to maximize their revenue, bring them additional business, but also partner with the newly established operators. Even in the Belgium, we were proud providers of some of the competitor of Proximus, and that makes us fairly unique in a way. So our business is a business where I think which is based on always win-win opportunities. And sometimes we do that with traditional incumbent. In other cases, we do it with innovative players. We learn from both occasions. Both occasions we learn, and I believe that our customers and partners also get their fair share of value, which is reflected in the business, but also in the knowledge. We bring a perspective that is often forgotten, which is the international, which is critical, for instance, in customer experience. Of course, we are not seeing these days because of COVID, but if you look at a few years ago, how important it was to have an excellent experience abroad. And that is something that often feeds straight into the NPS, Net Promoter Score, of domestic operations as well.
And that is true. Let me jump to something else, but your career gives me a lot of different areas that I can go and explore. You did mention before in terms of SMS, but you also worked as part of LoRa Alliance. So you were in the IoT, in the machine to machine. You were pushing this a joint approach, an open approach to the IoT. And so I need to ask you, what do you think of IoT today? What do you think of the market has done? How do you reflect back to your experience in LoRa?
So first of all, I mean, so basically, I'll start from your first part of the question. So what do I think of the IoT? IoT is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity because it's part of the digitalization of industries, because this is $1 trillion opportunity worldwide. What we are seeing is that no player out there can cover the entire value add and the entire ecosystem. So it's also an ecosystem play. Even largest telecom operator, they struggle to deliver on the front end, but they also struggle to deliver a uniform coverage worldwide, where you need multiple networks for for reliability. So it is an ecosystem still in formation rather than transformation in this case. And I think as a BICS, we have taken a very clear positioning into that. So, and we shall continue to do so. So the opportunity is great. The opportunity is also linked to the transformation of the telecom into software. So because you want IoT just to be simple capabilities that you want to bundle with, that you want to integrate into the applications. And so if you want, I mean, I hear people that call IoT the next CPaaS. I would be a bit more careful with that because it's a little bit more complex as an ecosystem than a CPaaS, but clearly the ability to transform conventional processes through IoT, it is a matter of competitiveness for companies. And so as a BICS, we are just focusing on our strength, which is a global footprint. And so, and we leverage our platform of roaming for that product as well, while playing a channel, while playing also an OEM channel partner approach. Now, coming back to the second part of your question is that when we look at LoRa, and LoRa is just one technology in a way. It is a technology that does well for specific use cases, right? And most of the applications of LoRa are related to near static, or if I may, and long, very, very long battery lives. We need to get to a good level of technical detail to understand the differences between LoRa and narrowband IoT or other technologies. I think it's a technology. It's not a solution that fits all use cases. It has to, but it's a complementary to a more cellular approach. We will see the promise of 5G on IoT. It's likely that 5G, once deployed at scale and in an ubiquitous manner, probably could, become a very strong substitute for LoRa. But at this stage, clearly, if we would be focusing on the two, the cellular or narrowband and the LoRa, you still find use cases where LoRa is a positive contributor. But again, I repeat, it's a tool into the toolbox.
And I have to admit how already I'm having technical problems, how important it is to have a good network. It shows all the time, including right now. So I apologize, I couldn't hear for the last seconds, but I believe that you were clear to everybody else. Matteo, you have just introduced some interesting things, is a concept of how much change there is in the industry, how much transformation you refer to. And I give you, this is a big theme of this event. I cannot stop and not ask you, well, what's your view from the top? How is the market for wholesale? How is it changing? How is it transforming?
Well, I mean, I have a great respect for wholesale business. I believe that in general, and we are today part of that. We bring opportunity. We have announced. We continue to focus on extracting value from the wholesale business as such. But I think next to that, we cannot ignore that there is a profound transformation at the retail side of the business, which is a transformation that it is impacting our telco operators as a customers and partners. But I think what this industry can do is to basically be a platform for that transformation to not only to preserve the existing value, but also to open up a new opportunity to capture more value for our partners and customers. And specifically, if we look at the concept of national communication versus international communications, we can see that it is becoming a little bit meaningless. I mean, today communications are done from a user, from an object towards the cloud. Again, clouds are, if I may, cross-border platforms, and so next to the traditional wholesale business intercarrier, we have to develop also platforms to become the bridge between users and billions of users worldwide and objects and the applications that more and more are hosted in clouds ecosystem. The clouds ecosystem themselves are important platform to develop your business, and so integrating with clouds, making sure your infrastructure, your processes are friendly towards the hyperscaler ecosystem is an opportunity to enter new value chain spaces. And so eventually this is part of our vision of BICS to become a communication platform company where we try to maximize exposures to all possible traffic streams, again, between users, objects, and clouds and applications. And so whether that is in the telco market or whether that is in the enterprise market, whatever enterprise market means, meaning traditional brick and mortars or digital natives or integrated software vendors or value-added resellers, what matters to us is that we embed our telecom services wrapped into clever software within our customer platform and processes, and so we help these processes to become more agile, more digital, and I think we help our customers and partners to also become more competitive downstream. So the industry, it has to come out of the wholesale mindset and enter a bit more and faster into the opportunities and the digital opportunity, which means rethinking the way we do business, changing a little bit the competences, or changes a bit the skills also into our companies to be able to talk simply a different language. So with that, I mean, if we achieve that, if we are able to achieve this goal, I think we will have multiple. We will look at an industry that will come out certainly post-COVID in a very different shape and with more opportunities down the street.
Well, you just mentioned how your customers partly are changing. You talk about the software and so on, and I'd like you to tell us a bit more, as you have direct relationship with your customers, as you front them, you speak to them. How do you think that the end customers is changing now? End customer, meaning your customers rather than the end customers. And how do you think that their demands, our approach to telecom is changing?
So when we look at our customers, of course, you have the wide range. I mean, in this business, personal relationships are really critical. I think it will continue to be so for quite some time. What is going to happen, in my view, is that our customers are also transforming themselves in digital companies. This is something that is happening because there is a strong push. There is a strong need to digitize processes. Our life of our end users is becoming, digital first in many cases. We see a younger generation that really interact with banks, with other services, simply through apps. They don't want to spend too much time in phone calls. They want to have everything available at their fingerprint. So our telecom operators are the same. So they will transform in digital companies. So we see that happening today. Of course, in a way, we also would like that our interactions with our customers, while the relationship stays a solid relationship going forward. But I think in terms of interaction in a day-by-day transactions, we want that to become digital, ideally be more and more automated, because that's simply the way to go. Otherwise it would be seen as a legacy in the legacy in a way, right? So we want to, without falling into the trap of building new legacies, by the way. And so the idea is that we follow in the slipstream of digitalization. We transform our customer journey. That has to be done with traditional customers in the telco space. And by the way, we can take examples from our new customers in the enterprise space, where the first interactions, where you enter into the traditional sales process, is an interaction that is all about proving that you can deliver, proving that you have the right economics, the right scale, proving that you have the right processes, and then thereafter it's very much a digital interaction through interfaces that have very little they require very little human intervention. You enter into, you deal with the transaction engine, you deal with decision engine that are completely automated. And so I think that's probably the opposite extreme. If you look at our most traditional customer, that's never going to happen. But it's good to look at our new customers, so we know how we should re-engineer our processes and try to adapt and try to learn from that and try to improve the way we do business today across the board, across our entire portfolio of customers.
Well, Matteo, thank you very much. Very insightful. I should say I would like to continue. Our 20 minutes have passed, but I think that's an incredible base to understand a bit more where you're coming from, but also possibly where BICS is heading as well. So I'm very glad that we had this time. So I hope I will be able to have a chance to speak on some of these topics soon. But for the time being, thank you very much for being part of our View from the Top.
Thank you, Dario. Thanks for having me.